Grab your beach towel. Today we're assembling the E-Coast.
Before we get started, it's important to know that we always recommend that your bicycle be professionally assembled. Or if you choose to follow this video and do home assembly, we recommend that a professional bicycle mechanic safety check your bicycle before riding. Now let's get started.
It's not recommended to assemble your bike while wearing sunglasses because you might miss something. But first you want to grab a Phillips head screwdriver and a cutting tool, scissors work. I'm using an X-Acto knife. I know you expected me to cut this box open, but with our new box, you don't have to. You want to remove these plastic tabs, pinch the center section, and pull out. You'll find plastic tabs on the front and the back, so make sure you remove all of them. Now that you removed all the tabs, just lift off the box. Inside, you'll find your parts box and a beautifully wrapped bicycle. Now remove all the packing material from the bike. All right, let's open up the parts box and see what's inside. We've got a rear reflector, all of our tools, and our manual. So just go through and give this a quick read at this step. We've also got our pedals and our front fender and light mount bolt. Gates carbon belt drive manual, give this one a quick read as well. And we've got our battery charger. Now let's install the handlebars. Start by taking your 4mm Allen key and removing the stem faceplate bolts. Okay, I like to keep them in the faceplate just to keep track of them. Just set that aside for a second. So grab the handlebars and just make sure these wires in their wraps are nice and cleanly out in front of the bicycle without being twisted around one another. Now hold the handlebars onto the stem, and there's a knurled section here that lines up with the face of the stem. And the best way to make sure these are as close to level as possible is to aim them right at the back of the bike, right at the saddle. The best way to make sure these handlebars are level is to aim them at the saddle. Now take that faceplate and start threading in those bolts. I like to do as much by hand as I can, if possible, just to get them started. Now use your 4mm Allen key to thread these in. If there's any resistance, then you want to unthread them and start threading again. You don't want to cross-thread these bolts. So do each of them a little bit at a time. Make sure that handlebar is centered. And you want to tighten them up in kind of a crosswise or a star pattern. And as they get tighter, you just want to make sure that there's an even amount of space between the faceplate and the stem on the top side as on the bottom side. And you can do this by feeling it or just by visually checking it. Get those nice and snug, but you don't want to over torque them. Now go ahead and just remove the bike from the bottom of the box. Flip open the kickstand and allow it to rest on the kickstand. Now let's install the front wheel. Start by removing the fork spacer with a 15mm wrench. Now remove the brake separator. You may need to let some air out of the tire to fit it through the fork. So to do this, just take the valve cap off and depress the pin. Make sure that the washers are on the outside of the fork dropouts and that the disc brake rotor is on the same side as the disc brake caliper. And I'm looking from this side to make sure that the rotor itself is fitting up into the space in the middle of the disc brake caliper. So go ahead and slot that in. Start tightening it down by hand. And then at this point, I'm going to take the bike off of the kickstand so that I can put a little bit of force on the front wheel. And then once it's off the kickstand, I like to put my hand on top of the stem and put a little weight on the bike to make sure that my weight is forcing the wheel up into the dropouts all the way. Now with your hand on the bike, just tighten down the axle nuts. You want to make these tight enough that the wrench leaves an indent in the palm of your hand. Go ahead and put the kickstand back down. If you spin the wheel and find that your disc brake rotor is rubbing on the brake pads, you could need a quick caliper adjustment. Now, the quickest way to do this, and this works about 90% of the time, is just to loosen the caliper mounting bolts with a 5mm Allen key. There's one at the bottom of the brake caliper and one at the top of the brake caliper. You just want to loosen those enough that you get a little bit of wiggle here in the caliper and you can move it by hand. So now, with the caliper loose, squeeze your front brake lever. And I like to give the caliper a little wiggle too, just to make sure that it's fully grabbed onto the brake rotor. While holding the front brake lever to keep the caliper in place, go ahead and tighten your caliper mounting bolts down. Just snug them up at this point. Go ahead and release that brake lever and give it another spin to check. In my case, that stopped the brake caliper from rubbing, so it was a success. If you find that it's still rubbing, you can go back and loosen those mounting bolts once more, and you just have to look really closely at the relationship between the brake pads and the rotor itself and move the caliper a very, very fine amount until those brakes are fully clearing the rotor. Once you're done, snug up the brake caliper mounting bolts and you're good to go. In your parts box, you'll find a couple of bags, and in those bags will be this bolt and series of washers, and these washers are basically in order as they're going to go when it's installed on the bike. And then we have a stabilizer spring and we have a cover for the stabilizer spring. So let's get into the installation. Start with the bolt with the flat washer, insert it through the bracket for the light. Next, the big curved washer with the flat side against the light bracket. And then go ahead and slide that through the fork. Next is the next curved big washer up against the fork with the curved side. Grab your fender, slip that over the bolt as well. Hold that in place. Now, take your L bracket here and then just slip the spring through it. Next, put the spring through the corresponding hole on the frame over there, over here. And hold that in place. It's easier if your handlebars are perfectly straight. Next, small flat washer. And you should just be able to catch some threads with the nut to hold everything in place. Now use your 10 mil to hold that nut in place. And go ahead and use the 5mm Allen key to tighten down that bolt. Once everything's pretty much snug, you can go ahead and just realign your mounts. Make sure your light is facing up and your L bracket is on the bottom side. And that'll help align the steering for you. Take the spring cover and you can just slide that on top of the spring. This will cut down on pinch points. Use a 4mm Allen key to remove the mounting bolts at the dropouts. And then go ahead and reinstall that bolt. Snug it up, and then go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. At this point, your fender might need an adjustment. Click the link in the description below for our video on fender adjustments. Now let's attach the struts for the rear fender. Use your 4mm Allen key to remove the mounting bolts and the rear dropouts. Insert the bolt through the fender strut, pull the fender back, and reinstall the bolt into the dropout eyelet. Now do the same on the other side. If you haven't already, go ahead and take the plastic protector off the tires. Now let's install the pedals. We've got a right pedal and a left pedal, and the right pedal is labeled R. The left pedal is labeled L. Let's start with the left side. Now this one can be a little bit confusing because it's reverse thread, which means that to install it, you turn it counterclockwise. So you can go ahead and start that by hand, and then with the bike here on the kickstand, you should be able to turn the pedals backwards, and that can help you install it more quickly while you're holding the tool. Now once it starts to get tight, you can hold the rear wheel and really put some leverage into the tool. Make sure you tighten it enough so that it puts an indent in the palm of your hand. Good. Now let's do the right pedal. This one's standard thread, so it's clockwise to install. You can start it with your hand, and then grab the tool, and you can do the same trick where you spin the pedals backwards while holding the tool on the pedal. And now once it gets just about tight, you can go ahead and hold the rear wheel. Just give it a nice crank. Make sure that the tool leaves an imprint in the palm of your hand. Now let's install the rear reflector. Take your Phillips head screwdriver and remove the bolt from the reflector. Go ahead and install it on the seat post. Sure, for the most adjustability in the seat height, make sure you install the reflector as high as you can. Now for the front reflector. Just use your Phillips head screwdriver to tighten it in place. Let's talk about battery care and charging and battery storage. So your bike comes with a charger. The charging port is located here on the back of the battery. And to plug it in, just plug it in and plug it into a wall outlet. To care for your priority eCoast battery, you want to have a dedicated outlet. And that means you don't want to put it on a power strip or have a bunch of other stuff plugged in to the same outlet. Now, you also want to make sure that the storage temperatures are within reason, which means you don't really want to store it below 32 degrees or above 110 degrees. And you don't really want to use it below 15 degrees or above 110 degrees. These are best practices to ensure that your battery works the best that it can and lasts as long as possible. We make sure that all of our batteries are tested and up to the highest safety standards. You can charge the battery on or off the bike, and to take the battery off, use the keys that shipped on the bike dangling from the handlebars. And to do that, just insert the key and turn it and pull back to remove the battery. Reinstalling it is really simple. You just slot it into the track on the rear rack and push it until you hear a nice click. You don't need the key to install the battery, only to remove it. You'll notice an on and off switch here on the battery. It's best to store the battery with the switch turned to the off position. It's the best way to maintain charge. But when you're ready to turn on the bike, start by flipping the switch to the on position. Now hold the power button on the left side of the handlebars. When the battery turns on, it's in pedal assist 0. You can see we're traveling 0 miles an hour, so this is your speed displayed, and the distance you've traveled. To turn the lights on, hold the plus button. To turn the lights off, hold the plus button again. To cycle through the different pedal assist modes, use the plus and minus buttons. You can see that the pedal assist level is displayed here on the top right, next to battery charge level. Pedal assist 0 allows your bike to operate like a standard bicycle with no e-assist from the motor. Pedal assist 1 is a gentle push from the motor. Pedal assist 5 is a strong push from the motor. Hold the minus button to activate walk assist, at which point the bike will travel at less than 5 miles an hour and allow you to walk alongside it. On the right-hand side is a twist throttle. It's active in pedal assist 1 through 5. It's not active on pedal assist 0. So if you're walking the bike, it's suggested that you walk it in pedal assist 0 or with the bike off to avoid any accidental throttle activation. The brakes deactivate the motor anytime you squeeze them. We recommend using pedal assist when you want to maintain a consistent speed or when you're just cruising along. Use the throttle for bursts of acceleration and to reach top speed. Please note that more throttle use means less battery life. The eCoast ships as a Class 2 e-bike, which means it's limited to 20 miles per hour. It's possible to change the bike up to 28 miles per hour limit. Check with your local regulations to make sure that Class 3 bikes are allowed. To access the settings, hold the plus and minus buttons at the same time. P1 allows you to change from miles per hour to kilometers per hour. We're going to skip that for now. P2 is our top speed for the pedal assist and throttle. Now to access this, press the power button once, and the plus and minus buttons allow you to change the top speed up and down. To confirm the setting, press the power button again. To exit settings, hold the plus and minus once more. Now that your new bike's fully assembled, check through your work and make sure every bolt that you touched and every one you didn't is snug. We highly recommend that a professional bike mechanic fully check this bike for you before riding. If you have any questions about your new e-Coast, reach out. We're available 7 days a week, and our contact information is on your screen.